Glad to have you here. Good morning, welcome, salam alaikum. I'm really excited. I'm Pradnya Haldipur, co-president of the Institute for Sustainable Communities. Delighted to have you all here and to be joined by such an illustrious panel from the public and private sectors this morning as we talk about, well, you can guess from the title, the power of the blue economy in getting to net zero. Immediately here, let me introduce the panelists, and then they're going to tell you a little bit about themselves and their organizations. Right here, Dr. Simona Marinescu, United Nations Resident Representative, Samoa, Cook Islands, Niue, and Tokelau. Frederick de Gret, founder of NOAA Regen. Carrie Constabile, Managing Director, Global Head of Sustainability Strategy and Net Zero from Standard Chartered Bank. Welcome. Abdulaziz Al Obeidli, Director, UAE Asset Management, Abu Dhabi National Energy Company, known as TAQA. So if you could each in turn take a minute and tell us about your organization and most importantly, the connection to the topic.
Thank you so much, Pradnya. Good morning, and great pleasure to join you today. My name is Simona Marinescu, and I'm the UN Resident Coordinator in the Pacific, covering a series of small island developing states, Samoa, Cook Islands, Niue, and Tokelau. Some of them might not be known to many of you. And working together with the UN team on the small island developing states agenda. So the blue continent, the blue economy represent lifelines for our small island states, and this event here is critical. So we look forward to some good resolutions this week. Thank you.
Frederick?
Hi, everybody. Happy to be here. I am the founder of NOAA Regen. So NOAA is a growing startup company. We are now having subsidiaries in different countries. One of them is the Blue Carbon Lab. We are a tech company, which is a R&D marine company. We are focused in developing technologies to unlock the blue carbon markets, to re-inject it into the circular economies of the transition for countries. Actually, we are announcing that we have signed a country which is an island state, Antigua and Barbuda, a few days ago at COP, so to manage their carbon market, to value it in a proper way, and to re-inject it into its economy for the transition. So this is NOAA offering a complete ecosystem to fast-track the transition of country and mostly large ocean states.
Carrie?
Hi, thank you. Hi, I'm Carrie Constabile. I lead sustainability strategy and net zero at Standard Chartered Bank. Standard Chartered is extremely active in both climate efforts and net zero and carbon markets. We are the chair of the Net Zero Banking Alliance. We also co-chair one of the working groups for GFANZ, and we are extremely active in carbon markets. As we will talk about today, the blue economy is fundamental to achieving net zero, both at a global level, but also at an individual corporate level and bank level. And for that reason, Standard Chartered has been very involved. We issued the first blue bond globally in the Seychelles, which I'll go into a little bit more. And we also have been issuing, we just went through a blue carbon auction on CIX, which is the global marketplace for carbon credits. So extremely pleased to be here and very committed to the blue economy.
Abdulaziz?
I'm Abdulaziz Al Obeidli. I work for TAQA as a director for UAE Asset Management. And as part of my responsibility is looking after our desalination or water desalination fleet. We're speaking of a capacity around 900 million imperial gallon of water, fresh water produced every day, utilizing, of course, the sea and the ocean. In addition to ensuring that we provide our client and our customer with their water needs, we are very focused and we are spending a lot of time in looking into how can we make our processes more efficient, how can we as well make it more environmentally friendly, less energy intensive, and so on. So that's how I am, I would say, connected to the blue economy from a professional perspective, but of course, being from the UAE, growing up in the UAE, the sea and the ocean is part of our life since we've been there. Yeah.
Well, my hope is that I'm saying this specifically to you, being from the UAE, that this will be the first of many conversations on this topic that will continue in Dubai next year.
Yes.
So I wanted to set the frame a little bit. I imagine that this is not quite a lay audience, a learned one, especially one here at COP, but I think important to set the frame for the questions I'm going to ask our panelists. So the oceans, represent the 7th largest economy in the world, contributing approximately $1.5 trillion a year to the global economy. The sustainable growth and wealth of our oceans through deployment of ocean-based climate solutions and the governance of green ocean policies is going to be crucial to achieving net zero. And I will add to that it will be crucial in the care and protection of communities that depend on the oceans for their survival and sustenance. So let's dig into some questions here. And as we go through, I'd like to encourage all of you to talk to each other as well. If things come up, feel free to interrupt me and direct questions to each other. We want this to be a conversation. So a general question for all of you, if you'll take it each in turn, starting with Dr. Simona. How do we measure, well, I just gave you some numbers, but in your estimation, from your perspective, in either the public or private sector, how do we measure the worth of a healthy, sustainable ocean economy? And do you feel that there's been enough coverage of this topic here at COP?
Thank you so much. So as we all know, we do not have yet an agreed upon definition of blue economy, so we can still talk about what exactly it entails. But let me just put that in the context of small island developing states. Small island states are small landmass kind of countries, but they they have under management very large parts of the ocean. So the exclusive economic zones, for instance, of the small island developing states in the Pacific represent somewhere close to 15% of the surface of the ocean. And by retaining jurisdiction over the exclusive economic zones, they have opportunities to work on preserving marine ecosystems, to generating food value chains, renewable energy, carbon capture, which is a topic that I'm sure we are going to talk about. Unfortunately, small island developing states do not have the financial means to be able to pursue the potential that the ocean offers. So I would put that at the center of the conversation at the COP as to how we ensure that those small island states, the only ones that have a direct entry point into the health of the ocean, considering that we still do not have an agreement on biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction, so we can only work where we have national jurisdiction, are actually supported to be able to do more. So a big part of the economy of small island states depends on the ocean in various ways we all know. So first of all, those are economies that are reliant on tourism, and the beauty of the ocean matters a lot. But again, their diets depend on the ocean, their connection with the rest of the world depend on the ocean. So without quantifying it, I would just say that is a significant component of their life. At the same time, there are vulnerabilities that come with the vicinity of the ocean at this time of global warming and sea rising. So they are vulnerable in many ways because they are coastal communities, entire islands. So it's critical that we discuss a bit how financing could actually match that ambition. Mm-hmm. Yes, small island developing states are ready to issue bonds, the governments, the corporations, the banks, and I'm sure Kerry will speak about it. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, this is still a borrowing instrument. So for our indebted countries, this is not an immediate solution. What is important is that we combine that with debt swaps, as the case of Seychelles, and ensure that we preserve their that sustainability while engaging in this innovative financing. Let me say that the ocean is now, according to the latest data, going even closer to 3 trillion US dollars, part of the global GDP. There is much more that the ocean could bring. So in addition to financial resources, our small island states need access to technology. There's a lot of technology here. Absolutely amazing solutions we've seen here. We need to be able to scale them up at the country level where actually they can change people's lives. So implementation, which is the topic of this COP, would need to get deep into the discussion of means, access to technology, a little bit of more cooperation, and in many ways allowing the private sector to move forward with very innovative and sound solutions. So as the United Nations, this is our commitment to ensure that at the country level where we are present, we leverage the power of the non-state actors to advance the blue economy and its economic benefits. Thank you.
Thank you for that robust answer. If I may reflect back to you what I heard, that ultimately, in terms of a quantifiable worth of a healthy, sustainable ocean economy, what I'm hearing you say is the small island nations need to move towards self-determination and access the technologies available. And with that, I'd like to move to Frederick as an implementer and as, if I may go so far as to say, someone who is passionate about these technologies.
Okay, so first of all, I'm very glad to hear what you said. You represent small island states. We are starting to work with small island states because we bring them an ecosystem adequate for their transition. How a small island state needs to go for a transition, the best way is to talk about valuation of their natural resources and moreover talking about blue carbon. So you were giving numbers, roughly $1.5 trillion is the size of the blue economy. So some experts are talking about at least $3 trillion for the blue carbon to be unlocked. Also, I've already seen other studies talking about plus $20 trillion capabilities. So I don't know exactly where is the number, but which I can tell it's that it is a game changer. So if we know how to unlock that market, and it's all about technologies, we need to decrease the cost of audit, we need to increase the scaling up possibility of auditing the carbon sequestration, understanding how we can fast track the regeneration and get carbon credit out of it. It is a first big layer for island states. They are small island states, but they are large ocean states. So if they can monetize their economic exclusive zone, it makes a huge difference. Then what we help them to offer on top of it is a complete ecosystem, how to monetize it, how to trace it, to bring transparency, trustability to the market, something which is very strong, and then how to re-inject these new revenue sources into their economy of the transition in a blended way. So we use that carbon as a de-risking tranche to then have the multiplicator effect from the private equity and also public funding on top of it. So this multiplicator effect could reach a multiple number of $1 trillion. That is a global solution. And what is very important for those island states is that for once forever, they can have the generation of their own revenue sources without depending on other countries. They can fast track their transition in an autonomous way and start cutting with importing energy, importing foods, and set up their own economy on clean techs funded by the mechanism. So that's a clear game changer, and it's, I mean, certainly the most growing economy for the coming decade.
That's fantastic. Carrie, I see you nodding your head quite a bit as Frederick was talking. I'd be curious to hear from you and Abdulaziz from the standpoint of organizations that are beholden to investors and stakeholders. What do you hear in Frederick's remarks? How will you all measure the worth of the blue economy?
Well, I mean, I hear both from Frederick and Simona's remarks that there is insufficient capital to the blue economy, to marine protected areas, and I think I absolutely concur. Absolutely concur. I think in terms of measurement, I mean, there are a few different ways of measurement. One is obviously science, right? We have to be led by science, and I think the IPES report from I believe it was 2019, if I remember correctly, it was the first really call to action for the world that a lot of the species that we know well in our oceans and waterways are at risk of extinction, and so being led by science, being led by the IPES, being led by by the IPCC, and then also ensuring that the blue economy is measured and standards are included in net zero standards. And so that is something that as a bank and banks and corporates alike are really following net zero standards, the Science-Based Targets Initiative, et cetera. And there's very little mention of the blue economy. And to incentivize banks, corporates alike to invest in the blue economy in their respective efforts, and I think that's something that's really important. There should be both standards and guidelines, and also ways in which to measure progress, and that is absent from the net zero conversation. I would say, in addition, and something I was just spoken about is that in addition to the science, assessments, we really need tech-enabled solutions to measure the health of the blue economy. So we've got, we have a lot of solutions. I mean, Google Earth is doing a lot, Normative is doing a lot, but where we really need to be able to overlay, different types of data with geo-informed data, so that we have a full picture of where are we today and how quickly it's changing. Those would be my thoughts just in terms of how we really enhance the monitoring on an ongoing basis. I think to your other question, is this COP sufficiently addressing blue economy? I think we all have. I mean, I think there's a clear answer, and I'd be very interested to hear if anyone disagrees. I think no, and it's not to say that this particular COP doesn't. I think no COP does, and I think because in some ways, because it's been very hard to align on one way of measuring the health of the ocean and how each government and stakeholder, non-state actor, what actions can be taken. So I think some of those solutions I mentioned are important. I also think there remains a bifurcation between the biodiversity negotiations, which are happening, sort of as we speak, and the climate negotiations. And we really need to merge the two. And it's really important that biodiversity is a climate issue, and climate is a biodiversity issue, and there is no dividing them. So I would call on the UAE to have a Blue Economy Day in Dubai to unify the two.
Well, Abdulaziz, I don't think we rely on you solely to make that happen.
No. Sorry to put you on the spot.
But you are the obvious person to address that comment to. Frederick, you look like you were about to add in.
To answer to that question, moving and COPs to COPs, there is definitely more blue in it, okay? Not enough, this is true. Without regenerating our ocean, we're gonna collapse, so it's obvious that we need to move forward. I think we are on the right pavilion with the right people to ask for a blue COP next year. Not one day for ocean, a blue COP entirely. It needs to go to that direction. And
maybe just to add to that until the ocean conference this year, the ocean agenda was not even integrated with the climate agenda. So now we talk about full integration of those agendas, and extremely important is to acknowledge that Egypt, as the host of COP27, put into its adaptation agenda a distinct section on ocean and the health of ocean and the ocean economy. So we are moving into that direction, but just to clarify that we still have approaches to major issues that are not integrated sufficiently. And financing instruments also follow those non-integrated agendas. So a lot for us to work as we move to COP28.
So, Abdulaziz, at the risk of putting you on the spot,
No, I mean, well noted, and I think I was very, I think, excited to hear what my colleagues here have shared. And I would like, if you allow me, just to have a more a personal reflection on this topic rather than an institutional one, right?
please.
I think in your introduction, you've highlighted that nations have relied on oceans, and I think we all know that around 40% of the world population live in coastal cities. More than 3 billion people use the oceans for their livelihood items and day-to-day, let's say, needs and so on. And 80% of the world trading is happening in the oceans. I also look at myself as a UAE national, grown up in this country. We've been always connected to the sea. Not since a long time, my grandfather was a pearl diver. So he will leave his family for 4 months. He will ship with his colleagues in the ocean and dive for pearls to make his income. And that's an economy, by the way, which probably have disappeared, part of the blue economy. What is today a luxury food, seafood, right? We were bored every day from having fish every day at our home. So again, it's part of our life and part of our day-to-day. The beaches were our ground yard where we go and play football as a children. Today it has evolved further to more an institutional again basis. We have offshore oil facilities. We have even offshore entertainment facilities. So I think the oceans will continue to play a significant role in our life, and they are a key part of the economy. And hence, going back to your question, how do we measure the worth of the ocean economy? For me, to be honest, I don't think it's a question of worth, but it's a question of survival,
Yes.
right? So ocean is part of our life, will continue to be part of our life. And I do agree we have to put more focus on the oceans, and not only from how we preserve the oceans, but also how we capture on those opportunities the ocean is bringing to us to advance a lot of today's agendas, including the carbon neutrality. Without investing in the oceans and without utilizing the oceans, we will not achieve carbon neutrality. Yeah.
So, if I may follow up on that comment, because you brought it up, as you say, the ocean economy is one we have traditionally derived food, workforce, survival. Yes? But increasingly, environmental conditions are changing and intensifying water security concerns. So, what do you believe the oceans can do for us? And I'm going back to the desalination question. To provide a secure source of potable water as one example of the many things that need to be addressed for the communities that you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, as you've highlighted, water desalination today is a key part of the water security supply in our regions. In fact, 50% of the water desalination activities happening in the GCC countries. In the UAE, more than 95% of our water, which we use in our household, in our industries, is coming from the oceans and from the sea as a water desalination. So it's playing a significant role, as we've highlighted, and will continue to play a significant role. In fact, in the just session before this, we were speaking about green hydrogen. And I think a lot of analysts and a lot of green hydrogen advocates do believe as well that the Middle East region will play a significant role in the green hydrogen. And I've just said in that session that desalination, or again the oceans, will play a significant role in driving the agenda of green hydrogen because you need a source of water. So in summary, desalination is part of our, I think, economy in the UAE. It's part of our survival. Will continue to do so, but what we are responsible for as people and nations is to ensure that first we mitigate any potential negative impact such a processes has on the ocean, but also make sure that we invest further in those technologies to make them more efficient, to make them more environmentally friendly comparing to where we are today. And we've done a lot, I think, in the UAE. I'm just in the risk of repeating myself, but as a company like Taqa, when we announced our ESG strategy, we've committed to reduce our emissions by 25% globally and by 30% in the UAE. And significant part of the efforts we will put in place to reach that target is around water and around water desalination, considering it an energy-intensive technology, right? And probably going to the discussion we had before, when we speak about carbon neutrality and decarbonization, people just focus on the power, they focus on the fossil fuel, but water desalination or water technologies will play a significant role on this. And in my very humble point of view, they are as important as the discussion we have around fossil fuel and decarbonization.
Dr. Simono, how would you advise your island nation states based on what you just heard about the possibilities with these technologies?
So first of all, our countries need to have localized, contextualized blue economy strategies, vision and strategies. And in that regard, I liked Frederick's point that the valuation of those assets needs to be a constant happening, a constant occurrence, as we know roughly that the ocean provides 24 trillion assets, represent 24 trillion assets, but we do not have a very actual recent valuation of the exclusive economic zones that those countries have. Such valuation could help them actually build some debt sustainability in the process. So first of all, knowing what they have, the assets they have, coming up with strategies that would look both into conservation and economic benefits, because we can't trade one for the other. So ideally, we should have a way to ensure that blue economy continues to preserve the quality of the ecosystem. Very importantly, the high-level panel for sustainable oceans that the United Nations works with has provided some interesting recent data showing that if we pursue the blue economy, again, combining marine conservation with food, energy, transport, and carbon sequestration, we will have the opportunity to reduce the emission gap towards net zero by 15% every year, which is a significant part of a significant role that the oceans could play. So that's one thing. The second thing is to learn a little bit about the innovative financing instruments that other countries have used. We know a little bit about Seychelles, we know about Belize. Now Fiji in the Pacific is launching its first blue bond with the support of the Asian Development Bank. The struggle is to find bankable projects that are aligned with what we call blue economy, that are inclusive, involve communities, make sure that women are at the center of what is happening and generating sustainable benefits. So we need, again, sharing a lot and learning from everybody around the world. Let me just say that the encouragement comes from the great technologies that are now made available to do carbon sequestration. So one of them is the Blue Carbon project of the International Atomic Energy Agency that uses nuclear technology to identify parts of the sediment, the ecosystem of the ocean capable of capturing carbon, do carbon sequestration for long term. There are a series of other initiatives, sea fields also working on that. So that should be a major preoccupation. While we invest into economic benefits, the most important economic benefit is to ensure that we take the advantage of this global resource in capturing and retaining carbon as we aim to reach net zero. So I would think that we need more partnerships for small island states. There are 38 member states of the United Nations and another 2 that are not. So 20% of the membership of the United Nations, small island states, big ocean states, taking care of the ocean on a daily basis, and also testing some of the financing instruments. I'm very much encouraged by the fact that global financing works committedly on decarbonizing money. So this is the net zero bank alliance that Kerry spoke about, but the entire Glasgow financial alliance for net zero. That is critically important. We very much hope that public funds will be decarbonized as well, as they also play an important role. ODA should be decarbonized as well. So all funds moving around would need to ensure that there is no carbon in them. So more cooperation is needed, and COP offers an opportunity. We just need to make sure that we push a little harder so that the negotiation process comes up with the right decisions to enable progress. Thank you.
Kerry, would you like to expand on that? How do
Yeah.
we ensure that the resources reach the fundable opportunities?
So Simona makes a wonderful point. I mean, we need multiple types of financing. I mean, public financing is incredibly important, as well as private financing. And one of the interesting things about the blue bond that we were involved in is that we collaborated with MDBs, multilateral development banks, to issue it. And that collaboration is critical because there are different levels of risk that different types of financial institutions can take. And to collaborate between a private bank and a multilateral development bank, you're then blending risk, you're blending finance. And so that type of product where you have collaboration between multilateral development banks and private banks, I think is going to be the key to solving the capital, not misallocation, but the insufficient capital to the blue economy. I think in addition, what we need to ensure is that there are very concrete targets and ways of which we can measure where the proceeds are going. So one of the areas that our blue bond, the proceeds went to expanding the marine protected areas. That is very clear. And so when you are developing a financial product, to be able to then show value to the investors in that bond and continue to incentivize more investors, you need to be able to concretely show that measurement, right? And so expansion of marine protected areas is very easy to show. In addition, though scientifically difficult to do, mangrove restoration and regrowth. The regrowth is extremely difficult, but that is, if successful, that's also something that, one, is extremely important for the health of the ocean and the ecosystem, but also extremely important for land resilience, right? And mangroves have been proven to withstand, to be protective mechanisms against the increase and exacerbation of natural disasters. And so that you're able to really measure the benefits. So what's, I think, very important is that we get, one, partnerships between public and private finance on concrete vehicles, and that we measure, that we develop areas in which the proceeds can go to that are where you have a clear baseline and then you have clear progress that you can measure. And with those two dimensions, I think we can scale up financing to the level that we need.
Yeah, I'm very aligned with what you're saying. I'm just coming back to a proof of concept that we've just signed with Antigua and Barbuda. We believe that blended finance is something that everybody talks about, but the compliance rules between the private and the public are that much different that it's very, very complex and long to achieve.
Yes.
So we have decided to set up tools dedicated for this. And as an example, Antigua and Barbuda has been committed to reinvest 70% of the whole carbon that we're going to unlock into let's say, born regenerative blue carbon bank with the adequate compliance rules. And these 70% are going to be used to de-risk fully. So it's just the first tranche, junior tranche first loss, technical assistance, due diligence, everything that the private sector or regular banks are not that much able to do at scale. So as soon as this works, and if it can be reproduced to many countries, then we have here a channel to de-risk and to bring the private equity around the table in a more efficient way. So this is a point. Then I'd like to make a comment on the carbon. We are working on for sure on the blue, but we believe that there is a process, we call it green to blue. So it's easier, faster, and more efficient somehow to regenerate strategic areas on land that affect the oceans, like wetlands, riverside. So I give an example on, I don't know, an intensive culture of bananas in Panama, which is using chemicals. So here we are trying to swap this into a biochar fertilizer natural, which put back the carbon into the soils as a natural fertilizer. So it's more carbon credits that the industry can get, a more better value for the commodities because it's not any more chemical. In the same times, we developed a technology that is able to, let's say, have a great picture of what is the ocean's reference state around that area. We use a technology with combined satellites, algorithm, machine learning that delivers a true picture of where is the biomass, how many carbon is sequestrated in that area, eliminating the pollutions from the chemical that goes into that river, killing the whole biodiversity. We're going to have a double effect with a carbon cascade mechanism. So that investment for the banana, which release green carbon as, let's say, the industry can do traditionally, it's potentially able to raise another 2 or 3 additional carbon in the ocean for the side effect of it. So this is here a multiplicator effect that is to take under consideration if we want to scale up and have a better, let's say, global solution.
Maybe just one point to add to what Frederick mentioned is that we marked an important milestone. We reached a milestone this year, earlier this year, when the World Trade Organization adopted a resolution to cut subsidies and prevent overfishing, as this is obviously something that kills the resources of the ocean. So that's great progress. Maybe equally important is to say that we are working globally on redesigning food systems. That's an initiative of the United Nations that wants to ensure that we manage sustainably the resources we have, including the resources coming from the ocean. And one important thing that will happen this week, actually, at G20, starting tomorrow, is the conversation on carbon tax that the International Monetary Fund wants to relaunch, actually. It has been a long discussion on whether carbon should be taxed as a global policy, should that be left for each market. So once that is adopted, obviously, it will act in favor of renewable energies, discouraging carbon emission, but at the same time will create some resources that small island states desperately need. So we think that that's a great source of financing for loss and damage, a big topic I'm not sure we have time to talk about. Let me also say that it is important to prioritize research in what the ocean has to offer. So we still talk about a resource that is only known, I don't know, at the level of 20%. So 80% of the oceans are still unknown. So there is a great opportunity for more research. We had the privilege to have had several research topics led by the New York University of Abu Dhabi. So hopefully next year we will have an opportunity to present, just understanding better the threats affecting the ocean. And my last point is that there are benefits, potential economic benefits that come from the ocean that are not necessarily protecting the environment. I'm talking about seabed minerals, a big topic in the Pacific Ocean. Thankfully, at the Ocean Conference in Lisbon, we reached a moratorium, a 10-year moratorium, to allow for more research before we destroy the marine ecosystem for the economic benefits that seabed minerals could offer. So a long way to go to better understand the ocean, but hopefully we'll walk on this way with more consideration for its biodiversity, for its importance for our life.
Thank you very much. And in these last few minutes that we have, I cede the floor to the four of you. My hypothesis is that the most robust conversations happen right as people are getting demiked at the end of these panels. So I'd like to give you each a few minutes in the hearing of the audience to ask each other some questions. You have each other as a resource. What would you like to know?
I would like to add something, because again, I think the common word we will hear in a COP is green, decarbonization, the roadmap towards carbon neutral, or carbon neutrality, right? I personally believe that there is no green economy if you don't have blue economy. And the blue economy is the enabler for everything we try to achieve in such forum and such conference, right? I just would like to use examples for people to understand the context here. We know that there is a lot of investment today on the renewables, and in specific in the wind energy. And the world require more wind farms, but we don't have enough land for it. And hence people start looking on the oceans and deploy a lot of wind farms. So without the oceans, we will not be able to achieve our targets in reducing the carbon dioxide. We speak about hydrogen, and hopefully in years from now, we'll start producing the green hydrogen. But how we will transport this hydrogen? We'll transport through the oceans. And I can give a lot of examples about this. We are also speaking about solar floating farms. We are speaking about brine mining, which is, again, we are using the ocean for it. So for me, and probably going to the first discussions we had, we need to put more focus on the blue. And if there is no blue, there is no green. People need to understand that. We have to cover all the spectrum of the colors, most probably, right? I'm not sure if there are other colors as well, probably need more attention. But what I'm sure about is, if we need to achieve a green economy, and if we need to achieve the targets beyond or from all of us being here, we have to put a lot of focus on the blue economy, because it is the enabler for that green economy we're all seeking by being here.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm going to jump on that comment. I think you're totally right, and even more, the blue is the new green. This is going to go much deeper than this. The way we need to structure the blue economy in the climate emergency that we are facing, I believe that we need to set up an ecosystem to put all the stakeholders around the same table. So my question to you and to everybody is, we are working on the setup of an NGO, which we would like to call GOTS, Global Ocean Trust Chain, which is a decentralized governance body with the goal to digitalize the blue value chain at global scale, to make the bridges between governments, policymakers, corporates, private sector, banking, project sourcing, and R&D. We actually talk with the UN to make a UN Ocean Academy. I mean, it needs to be digitalized, where everybody can join forces on the same platform and not do some initiative which could be very interesting that nobody going to know and is going to have a small impact there. We need this tool to scale up that and to coordinate it in a proper way, not to do the same model than the green, which has been having a lot of fails and could have been much better. So I mean, we have to learn about the past and try to organize it. So I invite you to join the working group to set up such kind of international federation for the blue, to coordinate it and to digitalize it.
I'm being asked to wrap up, but I do want to give Carrie and Dr. Simona a last chance to comment or ask.
So I would really like to hear, and we probably won't have time, so maybe we will continue after the panel, but hear what you would like from the finance community. I mean, in concrete terms, I know we need more financing, and we completely agree with that, but what kinds of, for what types of projects, in what regions, like the specifics behind that would be very helpful for me to take back to colleagues and also colleagues on the Net Zero Banking Alliance. I think the final thing I'd like to say is there's a really important COP15 biodiversity COP happening just around the corner, just after this COP, and so I from Standard Chartered and am really hoping that we see some robust agreement that will renew 2020 targets, but get new targets for 2030 that will show the way for financiers to be able to really take advantage of. Because I think that from the private sector, we need certainty. We need certainty that governments are committed and going to follow through on their commitments, so that we can then help them and leverage as well. So
thank you. And
perfect
Dr.
segue to
Simona, you have the last
Kerry's
word.
point is absolutely great, and the good news is that some things have started to happen. Very recently, we received from the investors holding 18 trillion assets under management an offer to support the food system reform if we decarbonize it. So interested in practically providing those assets, offering those assets through whatever instruments we create to support the food system reform. So I'm quite sure if we build a stronger bridge, we will be able to have more financing behind the blue economy, because the United Nations is a good de-risking partner. So we can't offer much, but if we are at the table, we can actually ensure that there is the level of risk is declining. Frederick made a very, very good point on the knowledge. So there is huge amount of the body of knowledge we have in 2022 as to what needs to happen. The solutions we have are here. It's just that they are not in all the right places, and capitalizing, drawing on the knowledge through vehicles like avenues like the United Nations would be extremely, extremely important. So we will have a center of excellence in Egypt on adaptation, which is great, with a big component on the blue ocean. Interesting idea on an academy. I just want to say that to take the knowledge from where it is to actually change people's lives, we would need a little more than just the knowledge itself. So I'm coming full circle. We need financial means for countries to be able to do that, and we even need human capacity. Small island states have very small governments. So there is no other way than just trying together to get closer to everything we know and we have, to allow this planet to have a future. I think there was a great statement in Lisbon when the Ocean Conference started, when the first speaker said, we no longer talk about some distant generations who are going to be affected by climate change. They're already born. They are our kids, our grandkids. So we are truly responsible to make something happen so that the planet does not start an irreversible decline. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our audiences here in the room and those watching on YouTube after this. We look forward to continuing the conversation over the next year, and certainly in Dubai next year. And I would be willing to bet, Dr. Simona, if you invited all of us and the audience to the South Seas, we would be there to have that conversation as well.
Please do come. The Pacific is beautiful. Please do come.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
you.